So I was participating in a session with a pastor last week who was also asking some similar questions, and he shared what I thought was a really helpful anecdote. So he talked about a specific instance where he had gotten onto an elevator and all of a sudden felt this feeling of panic, like he just needed to run off the elevator. He was worried maybe the elevator was going to crash or something like that. He just couldn't kind of control his emotions in that moment and wanted to run out of there. So we talked about the fact that those are parts of our brain, like the amygdala, that are highly responsive to a hormone called cortisol that gets elevated when we're in a stressful or an anxious situation. But we also talked about how that can happen in different scenarios. So what I described to him is, even though in that scenario, he didn't need to be panicked about the elevator itself, but in a different scenario, you can imagine if he were walking across the street and a car was coming and about to hit him, that's the exact type of response that he would need to have to get to safety and not lose his life. So a lot of times it's how our body and how our brain is reacting to specific situations. We have challenges when that response becomes more heightened than it needs to be in a specific situation. I would say with everything that's happening with COVID, this is something that's very unique for us as a society. To see something on this scale is something that not many of us or any of us have really experienced. There are definitely areas of the world that have experienced this type of thing before, but perhaps not on this global level. So a lot of what's happening in our brains is the way that our brains were designed to respond to challenges. The challenging thing for us is there can be long-term consequences of that. So when we think about depression, there are a lot of hypotheses about things that happen that lead to depression, but there's also a lot of evidence there are lots of changes that in the brain that happen with long-term stress exposure. So changes to brain function, changes to brain structure, changes to brain activity, and likely all those things are contributing to our anxious and depressive responses in these situations.